Why, hello. I have other things to be doing right now, but instead all I want to do is talk about Astro Boy, so that's what I'm doing right at this moment. Specifically, I'd like to ramble about how the 2009 Astro Boy movie is so transcoded, and I have no idea why, because that definitely wasn't the intention. Similar to that video I made about superheroes and how we need more of them to be trans, this will be a very rambly video. Before we get into some of the points that I have listed down though, there were 3 observations I want to start with. First of all, Astro Boy is actually quite similar to Adrian Agreste, or at least like the dynamic he has with his father. The first time we see Dr. Tenma is as a hologram in a car. I hear meowing. I'm not used to being interrupted by a cat. Hi. It's not my cat. It's so cute. So yeah, like Dr. Tenma is kind of like this like important scientist, and like he's really well known within the city. And then he has like no time to deal with his child. Also, both Astro and Adrian are kind of not human. Or at least as far as we know, Adrian is probably not human. We know that Astro is not human. If you've never seen Astro Boy, you're gonna be very confused. Another random observation is that in the movie, the animated movie, the characters act like they're on a sitcom, or like they act like they're in a live action soap opera, but like a really bad one. I don't know how to explain it. Like the acting is just strange, but they're animated characters, so it doesn't make any sense. A third random observation is that President Stone is... he's something. Seems a whole lot similar to a current president of the country I am thankfully not in. Aww. I'm holding hands with a cat. So like, let me just walk you through the movie of Astro Boy, because you'll hear me describe it and you're like, this is just a trans coming of age story. What? Basically, the plot of Astro Boy, like the movie, like from 2009, is like, so there's Toby Tenma, the son of like Dr. Tenma, like a world-renowned kind of like robotics guy. Toby dies because he's doing something that's, you know, not so smart. I mean, like Toby is smart, but he does something kind of reckless. What am I on about? He dies is what I'm getting at. So, because Tenma is a robotics genius, he basically recreates his son as a robot and uploads all of Toby's memories. The robot does not realize that he is a robot. It's kind of like the whole Zane situation, like from Ninjago. There might have been some Astro Boy influence there, not gonna lie. But unlike how Zane was like devastated to find out that he's a robot, Astro, on the other hand, he figures out he can fly, and he's so excited about it. Like, he loves the fact that he's able to drill through solid rock. He likes all of his abilities and his powers, and it's like such like a beautiful moment of him like realizing what he can do. Then he comes back to find that his father does not actually accept him like that, which is weird because he made him like that. He quite literally says like, you're not my son. Tenma makes it very clear that he does not want Astro to be there anymore, so he flies away. It's very like kicking your trans kid out of the house kind of vibe. So dude runs away, or flies away more accurately. And even though he was originally like perfectly okay with his abilities and he found great joy in who he was and who he discovered that he was, now that he knew that the external perception was negative, he was a lot more insecure about it and decided to hide that he was a robot. Astro gets like attacked by the president. Oh, that didn't age well. So Astro ends up on the surface, kind of like, well, he goes into hiding.
I totally forgot to explain this, but basically the surface is like the place below Metro City. Like Metro City is like a flying rock, and the surface is like the earth underneath of it. And the people from Metro City seem to have prejudice against people on the surface. It's not really explored. It's not really established like what it's like to live there, because it's kind of just shown as like where the people of Metro City dump all of their trash. It's just kind of covered in mechanical parts. But presumably there would be some kind of city there, because like, you know, Metro City wouldn't be the only city. Like I said, this isn't explored.
A lot happens in a very short amount of time, but Astro meets a whole bunch of discarded robots, like, on the surface, and they're like, oh, you're one of us now. He's like, no, I'm not like you. And they're like, but you're a robot, ain't you? And he's like, well, yes, but... And then they try to basically, like, tear him down. He's like, no, I'm not ready yet. It feels an awful lot like coming to terms with the fact that you're trans, but, like, you're not ready to come to terms with that yet. Because he just found out that he was a robot that night, so, like... yeah. Stop eating my finger. bookmarks. Astro is captured by some kids, and he quite literally goes stealth mode. He's like, yeah, I'm a kid like you. And the other kids are like wary of him at first because he's from Metro City, but it resonates with him that the other kids are like, well, why would you want to be in a place that treats you like garbage? Then he reveals that he got kicked out, and they're immediately accepting and like welcome him, kind of like, yeah, you can be with us now, it's fine. Kind of like a found family kind of experience. And then like 2 seconds later, and I'm not exaggerating here, he gets captured by some robots. There's a lot of capturing in this movie. Anyway, he gets captured by the group of humans by a group of robots. They go by the RRF, and they are these ridiculous characters that are responsible for quite a few of my vocal stims as a kid. The kids rescue him back from the robots. They ask what his name is, and he legit replies, Toby, but that's not who I really am. Like, is that not the most trans response? What are you eating? Hey, maybe don't eat that. And then they're all like, dude, it was a simple question. He's like, Astro. Call me Astro. Which, sounds like a pretty trans name to begin with, but the fact that he chose it himself. Also worth mentioning that robots can easily detect Astro as a robot, but all the other kids just think that he's a human being, kind of like how the queers can sniff out the other queers, you know? Astro also tries to come out to the other kids at the dinner table, also with Hamegg, which is kind of like the adoptive dad, and then chickens out, he gets scared. And then later, Hamegg is like kind of comforting Astro before he goes to bed, and is like, he calls him son, and then Astro's like taken aback because Tenma wouldn't call him that. In the context of the movie, he's, reacting that way because he was kicked out because he wasn't human enough for his dad who made him. But like outside of that context, you could also kind of read it like he just wanted to be accepted for who he was. Like, if he were supposed to be a trans character, that would make a lot of sense to be so like taken aback at being called son. Anyway, also something that I never picked up on as a kid was the fact that like Hamegg's like, we could always use a good kid in this family, like, good night, son, and Astro's like, good night, pause, Hamegg. Like, that pause indicates that he was probably gonna call him dad by accident, because poor dude just wants a family that loves him. Now also there's this dog character called Trash Can, who's a literal trash can but in dog format, and he spends the vast majority of the film trying to out Astro as a robot. So the name is fitting. And also I'd like to point out this line. This may not be exact, I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm going to tell them, just not yet, okay? I just want them to like me first. And I cannot stress this enough. This movie is not good. Like, despite how important it is to me as a child, it's really not good. But I'd say the one thing that I can say I think is done pretty well is how they depict Astro's emotions pretty realistically while he's on the surface before he gets outed. Like, he's very nervous constantly because he's so afraid of someone finding him out. But like, this is abnormal for the character. Like, he's based off of Toby, and Toby was like quite loud and outspoken and also kind of an asshole. The blue core that was like his energy source, kind of like Zane's like blue ring energy thingy. It's implied that the blue core kind of gives him this positive energy which makes him a better person, but like regardless, he's still different from Toby, but even more different when he comes to the surface and he has to hide who he is. Like, before you find out you're trans, you act a certain way, and then when you find out that you are and you have to hide that from people, then you start acting different. That's kind of what I'm getting at. That's what it feels like. Like, on the surface, he's quiet and timid, he's afraid to ask questions, he's afraid to impose. He doesn't really want to be seen, like he tries to be more invisible. He's like very soft-spoken before he comes out, and like very sad looking a lot of the time, like rightfully so, but he's just trying to hold it together. He does everything that he can to make them like him. It's almost like he's trying to be perfect, which is not what he was doing when he was more comfortable with his dad. He does anything that's asked of him, he goes above and beyond, and doesn't really take on much of a personality. Like, he lets other people project their idea of him onto him instead of actually having a personality, trying to mold yourself into different versions so that other people will like you more, especially before telling them something important like you're trans or disabled or another flavor of queer. Like, I used to do that. I still do that. Who am I kidding? It's odd that they do this so well because they fail to make his character consistent. Like, for example, he gets put in the robot games and at first he's like, I'm not fighting, and then proceeds to fight all of them. And like a few days prior to that, he wasn't even phased when like this giant robot he revived named Zog crushes another robot into like pancake mode.
Pancake.
I don't know who wrote this scene, or any of the movie really. So much of what the characters do and say contradicts what they do previously in the movie. I think what the writers were trying to do was show that Astro wasn't going to fight. He was going to like fight by not fighting, like just by dodging, and then they're like kind of hurting each other in the process. But that's not really what happens. He like actively takes limbs from other robots and uses those to hit the other robots. Like that's still hurting people. I don't know. Like, just because it's not your body part doesn't mean that you're not doing the damage. Like, I see that you're using a giant severed hand to knock down a bunch of other robots like dominoes, but that doesn't mean that you didn't do it. You're holding the hand. I mean, I don't blame him for fighting the robots that were attacking him. I'm just saying, like, don't act like you have this moral high ground because you were still fighting them, dude. Oh, another interesting aspect of this movie is the fact that when people find out that Astro's a robot, they kind of think of him as appropriating human culture. They're like, that's not a kid, that's a robot. Why can't he be both? Okay, I got a bit of ahead of myself there, so let me backtrack. Oh goodness, I am covered in cat hair now. I'm gonna have to get used to this. Also, if you can't tell by the fact that my classic decorations are now on different walls, I have moved. Anyway, so Astro spends a whole bunch of time with the Surface Kids trying to make them like him. He resurrects a robot to being a part of the robot games, which Astro doesn't know is like a fight to the death kind of situation. And then Hamid calls him a genius and too good to be true. And despite all the love and care that he's shown for Hamid and the other kids, they still turn on him like he's not deserving of any of it in return just because he's a robot. Now, Hamid is developed to be extremely prejudiced against robots, like from the very beginning. Like his first interaction with Astro is, I love robots, and then proceeds to kind of describe them like they're servants. It's kind of like the I love robots, it's performative, or like they're misinterpreting what it means to love people. There's also this like fancy over dramatic music happening in the background as he goes on this whole monologue, which does not fit the rest of the movie. And he repeats the phrase, I love robots, twice, which is also really weird. Like it implies that he's overcompensating. And then later he has this like detector for like energy readings that he points at Astro. He tries to make it look like an accident, but he definitely did it on purpose. The energy readings go off the charts because obviously Astro is like a pretty advanced robot. He has a lot of energy. Like the blue core has, it's like a star. There's a star in him. Yeah, there's a lot of energy there. And then Hamid says not to worry about it because it's just another machine with a mind of its own. He says it with a sly smile, so you know that he's actually referring to Astro in that moment and not the energy reading thing. I think that's a really interesting moment because it kind of reveals that Hamid seems to see robots as having minds and having brains, but he doesn't care, and he thinks that they shouldn't have their own way of thinking. Kind of like how certain people will look down at other people who are different from them and think that they don't deserve to have their own opinions and own thoughts and rights. Off topic, but Sludge and Widget kind of look like identical twins, but they're two different genders. Starting to look like a Whole Dipper and Mabel Pine situation here. There's a scene between Astro and Cora, who's like an important character, where like she reveals a secret that she still has parents that she's trying to get back to. And then he's like, everybody's got secrets, I wouldn't tell. Can I tell you my secret? My secret? That's words. She's like, yeah, of course. You're a good guy, Astro. He smiles, but like, because, you know, he's happy about that. Dude's then like trying to say that he's a robot. Like he's like panicking. Like I recognize that panic in myself. Like I would also panic that way if I were trying to come out to someone that I really looked up to. And then he chickens out. And he's like, damn it, when he doesn't say it. And it's like, that was the coming out scene. Failed coming out scene, but gosh. Okay, skipping like way ahead because things happen really quickly after that. I feel like I need to put a warning for like depression and suicidal tendencies, ? Yeah, I know, wild that this is like definitely supposed to be like a child's movie, but the main character has suicidal tendencies. That was my hip. It didn't hurt, but that was a weird noise. So after the fight scene with the robot games, the government comes for Astro. The government. So I just think that's funny given what's happening now. I mean, it's not funny. It's not funny, but the government coming. Trans person, what's new? So the government comes for him, and he just goes with them. He accepts the handcuffs. He very well could escape. He had the ability to get out of those handcuffs. He just didn't. Like, his friends don't accept the fact that he's a robot because he gets outed by a ham egg. You know, because he's awful. Like, when they don't accept him, he accepts that, like, he's never going to be accepted. So he doesn't really want to live anymore. Like, dude just accepts that his dad is trying to kill him. Like, his dad has been tasked with taking out his core, which essentially deactivates him. And he dies. Like, keep in mind that Astro is fundamentally human, just with a different body, yet other people are deeming him as dangerous and want him deactivated, and he just agrees with them because there's no one else on his side. I'm sorry, but that is just so sad. I don't know why I'm laughing. Maybe because I laugh in uncomfortable situations. So after he dies the first time, because it won't be the last, his dad actually is the one who, like, revives him, and he says, like, you may not be Toby, but you're still my son. We love an accepting father. And then he tries to kill himself 2 more times. Yeah. Okay, you could argue that it's self-sacrifice, but that's still bad. Like, he was told, you know, to escape the Peacekeeper, which is this war robot. Like, the Peacekeeper has the red core. I feel like this is important information if you haven't seen the movie. But basically, Astro has the blue core, and then there was also something called the red core that was also created, and if the two of them go together, the whole thing goes boom. As in, the cores die. Blue core has positive energy, so, you know, good person. And the red core has negative energy, which means you turn evil. I don't know, but I didn't come up with this. Peacekeeper, the war robot thing, has the red negative energy core thing and is somehow absorbing, like, all the other weapons that it touches. Like, this... He's, like, destroying Metro City, and then the city, which is, like, floating, starts going down. And Astro's like, I gotta take care of this. And he just flies and lifts it up. And, like, if he were human, obviously he would die. Most of them assume that he was dead after, you know, getting crushed by an entire city falling on him. He does not die. He survives that, and he fights the Peacekeeper, and then eventually he realizes what he has to do, which is, you know, blue core, red core, boom. And then he's talking to his father like, this is it. This is what I was created for. No, you were specifically created to not die ever. You had one job. It's like in Hamilton, where Eliza's like, just stay alive. Like, the bar's on the floor, buddy, and you got yourself killed and your son. There was one thing you had to do, and you just failed it miserably. But even if he was talking more about, like, the philosophical purpose of why he was created, it still doesn't make sense, because the red core was created after the blue core. It was derivative of the blue core. So, like, if the blue core was only created to destroy the red core, then it's a paradox. Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. Did I mention this movie wasn't written very well? Also, unrelated, but also related. The whole blue core, red core thing is basically the plot of Umbrella Academy Season 4. Anyway, back to the Astro Boy trans reading, because that's why you're here, I would assume. You know, it's actually kind of heartbreaking to watch, like, that last scene as an adult with experience in that area. So Astro, after 3 days of being alive, but, you know, has the memories of a 13-year-old thought he'd be better off dead. That is so sad. Like, the poor child comes to the conclusion that he needs to sacrifice himself to protect people and that there's no other reason for him to live. A 13-year-old decided, yeah, no, my purpose was to die. Oh, there's a cat here. Like, he feels so out of place that he doesn't want to be alive anymore. Like, that is so sad. And feels a little bit much for a children's movie. Okay. So Astro dies the second time, and as he's, lying on the floor waiting to be revived, because like I said, this is a kid's movie, he's not staying dead for long. There's this conversation where people are saying he has more humanity than most, and I know this is not intentional, but the way they discuss humanity, like he's got more humanity than most, reminds me of how like trans people are kind of demonized and we're told that we're monsters, meanwhile we're just existing. I know that's not a very obvious connection, but that's just where my brain goes. Trans people are human is what I'm trying to get at. Also, side note, but like the fact that he was a boy despite not having boy parts brought up a lot of emotions for me as a child. So that was my trans reading of Astro Boy, the 2009 movie. Bit of a ramble. My apologies. I have a lot of footage to get through now. Okay, goodbye.